Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Conversations with Canisius. It's Andy Deyell here at 1180 Delaware, and I have a very special guest today, all the way from Newport Beach, California. We are joined today by John Murphy, class of 1962. John, how are you?
Great, Andy. Good to be talking with you again, and always great to be talking about Canisius High School.
Great, yeah. John is a founding partner in the West Coast law firm Stradling Yocca Carlson Rauth, and we're going to get into John's story of how that happened. But first, before we do that, we're going to take a moment and go back in time. Class of 1962, that's just a few years ago, John. We're going to
One or two.
One or two. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Buffalo and specifically how you heard about Canisius High School, sort of what brought you there and your experience going through the Blue Doors every day.
Well, we lived directly across the street from Cleveland Hill High School, directly across the street from Cleveland Hill High School. And we could have gone, I say we because my brothers and sisters were in the same soup. My brothers in particular followed me to Canisius High School. We could have gone to elementary, middle school, and high school there, and it would have been easy. But my parents were strong believers in Catholic education. And so we had gone to grammar school. I finished up at St. Aloysius. And I'm not sure whether I heard from St. Al's or something in the newspaper about an entrance exam for Canisius High. And my mom especially was a strong believer in let's give it a whirl. And in that year, the high school was giving out scholarships, and I was fortunate enough to win one. My mom loved things on sale, so she decided it would be good to head to Canisius High School. And one of those things, looking back, you say how wonderful that choice was, how fortunate it was for me. And then each of my three brothers followed my footsteps to 1180 Delaware, and we all enjoyed it very much. It meant taking the bus instead of walking across the street. It meant walking up to Cleveland Drive and Harlem Road and catching the bus and getting off and hiking up Ferry Street. But all good, loved it. So that's what took me to Canisius High School in the first instance.
What some of those memories? I'm so sorry. I was just going to say, thinking about those 4 years. Any memories stand out in particular?
Lots of them. I think most especially the opportunity to meet with other guys from throughout Western New York and to understand somewhat diverse points of view. Obviously not completely diverse because we were all from Western New York and mostly from Buffalo and the immediate suburbs, but it was still the case. Not everybody was from St. Al's. We had a variety of people with a variety of different points of view. So that experience, and then I just loved being introduced to Latin. I know you loved your classics experience. In those days, we had Latin 8 days a week, 8 classes a week. It seemed like 8 days a week too for the people, but 8 classes a week in first year and 6 classes a week in second year. So you were really into all things Roman, including the culture and the engineering that people had created, and a fascination that I think never quite leaves you. And then I was fortunate enough to somehow fall into speech and debate at the high school. And it was one of the things that was emphasized, and boy, we had some terrific debaters ahead of us ahead of me in class and my year and following. And we traditionally did very well. And it was a wonderful experience for me. That was my primary extracurricular, and I loved it very much. So the 4 years went by at the time, not so quickly, but looking back, boy, oh boy, did they fly by.
That's great. And I love that sort of a love for Latin. And I also have to tell you that as I do a lot of these little videos and talk to our alums, this idea of diverse perspectives and coming to Canisius High School and getting to know people from throughout Western New York as a sort of an eye-opening and a wonderful experience for our graduates is a very common sentiment. And so hearing that yet again from somebody, it's one of the things I sell to my son as we talk about him, it's one day being a Crusader as well as one of the great benefits. So you graduate in 4 years, you move on to college, but you take some of that love, I know, for Latin with you that feeds this little love of travel. And I don't want to tell your story, I want you to tell it. So tell us a little bit about your undergrad experience and then how you found yourself, across the Atlantic.
So I started at Canisius College and was fortunate enough to have scholarships from New York State. So I was actually, tuition was covered, books and fees were covered, and I think there was a little extra beyond that. So a wonderful way to start. And in spring of my sophomore year at Canisius, I noticed on one of the bulletin boards in the hall a brochure from Loyola University talking about its Rome Center. And, well, that sounds interesting. A chance maybe to see firsthand what I had imagined through all those Latin classes might have been Rome. So I applied for it and was admitted to that program. And that was my junior year. So junior year in Rome, and an opportunity to travel. Classes were 4 days a week. So every weekend was an opportunity to travel. And our Christmas break, I think, was 6 weeks. The school sponsored a trip through the Middle East. Rome, Athens, Cairo, Amman, Jordan, Damascus, Beirut. So again, opening relatively young eyes to a much broader world. And I caught the travel disease then, and I haven't been cured since. Continue to love it. And it was a great opportunity to see firsthand what we had read about in our Latin studies, how extensive Roman culture had permeated the Mediterranean area. It was fascinating, really was. Yeah. So after that, and by the way, I should add, I met my wife there. She had gone to undergraduate school at St. Louis University and decided also to go to Rome. And so each of us refers to the other as our very expensive souvenir from Rome. Finishing that year, she went back to finish her undergraduate education at St. Louis, and I came back to Buffalo and finished out at Canisius. And I learned that Greyhound provides bus transportation from Buffalo to St. Louis. I left the driving to them more than once. And we survived a year apart. She ended up getting a job with the Navy in Arlington after graduating, and I ended up applying to law school and was fortunate enough again to get scholarships to the University of Virginia Law School in Charlottesville, which is not all that very far from Arlington, maybe 2.5 hours. So I started there and frequently found my way back to the DC area over weekends, and more often than not, if I didn't head that direction, my wife headed to Charlottesville. So we did that for first year, got married in my second year, and at that point, she was thinking she'd come down to Charlottesville and take classes at the university, and I was thinking, well, it would be so much better to have food on the table, and so I encouraged her to see if she couldn't get a job with the understanding with her employer that she would take the summer off, and she had wanted to see California. I would do the best I could to find a summer job in California. So we struck that deal, and it worked. She got a nice job in Charlottesville, and I got a nice summer position in Orange County, California. We drove out in a Volkswagen and spent the summer here. And
never looked back, right?
Yeah. And, at that point, I will say we were not particularly smart, but it was clear that Orange County was an area that was growing, and that the rising tide could even lift this boat. And so we looked for an opportunity to come back after I graduated from law school, and did, and have lived here ever since.
And how did you find yourself as a founding partner in this law firm? Building that career at such a young age.
Well, I started at what was then, and I think still is, the largest law firm in Orange County, Rutan and Tucker. And that's where I'd spent the summer. And after graduation, rejoined Rutan and Tucker. I stayed there 5 years and was a partner after the 5th year, and had good friends who about a year and a half, year and 3/4 later, left to form their own firm. And I thought, well, that's interesting, but I'm still content doing what I'm doing. I was in Rutan's public law practice. We represented public agencies throughout Southern California. But after maybe a full 2 years, I thought, it would be fun to join those guys again. So, so two other partners at Rutan and I joined forces with this group, and we formed Stradling Yocca Carlson Rauth. And it was one of those situations where I came home and said to my wife, I've got some news, but I'm leaving Rutan. I'm going to go off basically on my own. And she said, well, I've got some news. I'm pregnant with our third son. And I go, okay, that'll make things interesting.
You win, right? And so your career there has been how long? Yeah.
Well, at Stradling, January 1, 1978. So a year or two. Yeah,
a year or two. That's a good career. And tell us a little bit about what kind of law you specialize in and practice there.
So having come from the public law department at Rutan, I continued to emphasize representation of public agencies and people doing business with public agencies. And my practice quickly evolved into representing them in connection with the issuance of debt. So municipal bonds. And the municipal bond market wants an opinion from a lawyer or a law firm that has experience with the concept of municipal debt. A hangover from the 19th century when courts frequently would invalidate municipal obligations for inconsequential reasons, apparently inconsequential reasons. And they would say, no, you hold a piece of paper, the municipality doesn't owe you anything. And then after the introduction of the federal income tax, the marketplace also wanted an opinion that the interest on the municipal bond was exempt from federal income taxation. That's the key to the very favorable rates that municipal bonds usually enjoy. So my practice then evolved to emphasizing the legal work associated with municipal bonds.
Go back in time a little bit to Canisius High School and ask you just, how do you feel Canisius prepared you for this career in law? Like, can you point to any particular teacher influences or academic influences that gave you the foundation to do what you're doing today?
Well, I think even before we talk about teachers or academic influences, I mentioned before that experience of realizing that not everybody is from St. Al's and we're getting a diverse representation from them. That was a wonderful part of Canisius High School. And it certainly prepares a student for a broader world. Now, my immediate college experience, Canisius College, wasn't extraordinarily broad, but somewhat. The Rome experience, obviously much more so, the University of Virginia, much more so, and then the real world. So that notion of learning to interact with a new group of people, I think is essential for whatever you're going to do, whatever your future calling, that's key. And then from an academic perspective, I think maybe two aspects. I think my experience at Canisius helped me to learn how to learn. Part of it was analytical thinking, certainly language with the emphasis on Latin, a modern language, the English program that we had, learning to think analytically about sentence structure, about solving problems, whether it was geometry or physics. And then beyond that, I think the intramural experience was as important for me as the classroom experience itself. I mean, I know now that the extracurricular experience at the high school is even greater than it was when I was there, but an opportunity to learn to interact with fellow students in a variety of different ways, whether it was on the freshman basketball team. I was on the Acmes. I don't know if they still have that team, but for height impaired guys, which I was. So that and crew, but for me, most especially, as I mentioned before, the debate team. And certainly the experience on the debate team, trying to learn how to persuade people of a point of view, but even more importantly, to learn how to take both sides of a question, to debate the affirmative side of the proposition today and the negative side of it tomorrow. You learn there are multiple points of view. And you learn how the other side might be thinking about a problem. And that for me was an invaluable experience. And so, and I think that, you know, particular teachers, there were so many of them. Our first year Latin teacher was Nicholas Kessler, who was the registrar of the school at the time, and who also taught us algebra, and a great introduction I've enjoyed.
And you know, you touched a little bit on this next question earlier with, I was going to ask you about advice for, you know, our young alums who are just starting out in the world, either heading to college or heading into the work world. You've had a long and storied career and you're still going strong. What is some advice that you can impart on young people today as far as, you know, not just about career, but life in general?
Well, you know, it's been said before by so many people, but it always deserves repeating, I think. Find something you love doing. Once you love what you do, you're not working at a job anymore. You're enjoying what you do. You're working at a profession, and you're receiving rewards of every kind. You're not in it to get a paycheck. You are being rewarded in so many ways. So it's a big world out there. There are lots of wonderful places to establish yourself. And no need even to stay in one place these days. You know, find a place that you love living in, that you can find fulfillment, whether you like the outdoors, whether you get warm water, warm weather is important to you. Lots of wonderful places to live, and lots of wonderful ways to serve yourself and to serve your community. So look for that. And if you don't find it first time, you're not a prisoner to it. Look elsewhere, right? And keep your eyes open. It is a big and wonderful world, and there are lots of wonderful places to be enjoyed, for sure.
That's great. Let's think a little bit now. Let's just look forward a little bit. What does the future hold for John Murphy, his family? Not only in the near term, maybe midterm. What are your plans and goals as you're looking out? As somebody who loves to travel, this last year must have been very difficult for you. And I'm assuming that travel is somewhere on the schedule. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, you know, you have it exactly right. The truth of the matter is the COVID experience for us has not been as nearly as draconian as it has been for so many people. But what we've missed is the opportunity to see our family and to be with the grandkids most especially. And clearly the near-term future calls for a whole lot more of opportunities to be with them. And travel is a part of that. So 5 of our grandchildren live in the Chicago area, and we love going to Chicago, but we also know we can meet up with them in a variety of places. So part of the plan is definitely to continue to do what we did before COVID, which is enjoy being with them and traveling, and with our brothers and sisters the same way. They're all scattered around the country, and travel and meeting together in nice places is a nice way to get together. So travel and family, I think, key. And then maybe part of travel, still skiing, although not on the Olympic caliber level, but still enjoying getting out. In fact, my wife and I were just up in Sun Valley for 5 days last week. So still enjoy doing that. And we've got, so far on the year, of our 5 international trips, 2 have been canceled, but we're hopeful that the remaining 3 will remain in place. So definitely more of that. And continuing a little bit at the firm, obviously I'm not working at the same level that I did 20 or 30 years ago, but I'm still having fun. And maybe that's an opportunity to reprise the notion, find something you like doing. And if you do, and I was fortunate enough to do that, then it's hard to say I'm not going to do it anymore. And what I've been fortunate enough to be able to do is to gradually transition the work over to other people and still stay involved, especially on projects that I've enjoyed and the people that I've enjoyed most working with. So I've been very, very fortunate in that regard. And that's part of the future plan too, a little bit more of that.
Well, John, I wish you well with all of that, especially the time with your family. I know that's got to be really difficult, and it's been difficult for, a lot of us in the last year, but I'm going to say a prayer that you get to see everybody very soon. And I really appreciate you spending the time with us today, telling us a little bit about your story. I know there's so much more to it, but I know that sharing your story with our community will resonate and be a wonderful thing. So thanks for joining us today. I look forward to keeping in touch, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you. And as I said, always fun to talk about Canisius High School. Thank you.
Thank you.